Anubias is a great, low-light, low-maintenance plant that is pretty easy to grow in most planted tank setups. I often see people recommend Anubias to beginners, but it's rare that I see people actually go into some of the different types of Anubias in the hobby. In my experience, different types of Anubias have different advantages and disadvantages to each other, be it the size, leaf shape, leaf texture, or hardiness of the plant, so I wanted to make this video going over some of the Anubias types that I personally keep in my tanks. So getting into a quick comparison of the maximum size of the different types of Anubias that I'll be featuring in the video, but things like CO2, available nutrients and light all come into play with growth. As you can see, there's something on offer for tanks of all sizes here, and a lot of these will do well in the foreground, midground or background of the tank depending on the specific type of Anubias you go for. Here's another little table that I made that adds in the leaf shape based on the official Tropica description, as well as the hardiness of the plant based on my personal experiences as well as the experience of a few friends. One final quick point for beginners who are brand new to Anubias is that you shouldn't be planting your Anubias in the substrate of your tank. You should be trying to attach the rhizome of the plant to the hardscape with glue, thread, or even just jam it into something or use ceramic rings. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's get into Anubias Barteri, and I currently only have this in my 40-gallon tank, and it is a new plant as well, so it is a little baby, but it will get far bigger. This specific type of Anubias does cause a little confusion within the hobby because Anubias has a species name and a variety name, and for this specific plant both of these are Barteri. This is why you'll usually see this listed as Anubias Barteri var Barteri, but other types of Anubias in the video will be listed like Anubias Barteri var Glabra. It's the last word that matters, but some people see Anubias Barteri and instantly think it's going to be a huge plant. So specifically dialing in on the Anubias Barteri variety, and this is one of the more hardy types of Anubias in my experience, and it rarely seems to have any problems with melt or rhizome rot, making it a great option for people new to planted tanks who have a tank large enough for the plant. Anubias Barteri is one of the tallest Anubias plants in the hobby when fully grown, and it can actually max out at around 16 inches or 40 centimeters. But this plant is a pretty slow grower, so this can take a very long time, and if needed you can trim it down to maintain the growth. With this being a cheap, easy to find, hardy variant of Anubias, some people will keep it in smaller tanks and use the trimming strategy to keep its growth in check, but in my opinion you're going to be better off going with one of the other featured varieties later in the video. The maximum height of this plant does mean that it can work well in the background of your aquarium, but it can also work in the midground for certain aquascapes. When fully grown, the plant has large broad leaves that provide plenty of hiding spots and cover for your fish as well, while also providing grazing spots for your shrimp and snails. Although most types of Anubias can do well in low lighting, Anubias Barteri often sees stronger growth than some of the other popular types of the plant when kept in tanks powered by lower powered lights. Another advantage of Anubias Barteri is that it does well in a wide range of pH levels with minimal issues, making it a great option for most tank setups that are large. Moving on to Anubias Coffeefolia, and this one is new to me and I currently only have it in my 40-gallon tank, but I definitely want more of them in the future. The main thing that I like about Anubias Coffeefolia is the unique ribbed leaves that add something unique to this plant that makes it stand out from other types of Anubias. Personally, I do like to mix things up in my aquariums when it comes to the plants, and I try and get different sizes, colours, textures and shapes of the plant leaves, and this guy definitely has a unique texture. Officially, Anubias Coffeefolia can grow to a maximum height of around 12 inches or 30 centimeters, but one of my good friends has a few of these plants in different tanks that he has, and he reports that the growth is unpredictable. For example, his 55-gallon tank has a few different Coffeefolia rhizomes in it that were all added at the same time, and some have grown up to the 10 to 12 inch mark while others seem to have maxed out at the 6-inch mark. This might not be important for many people, but just keep it in mind when planning the placement of the Anubias Coffeefolia in your aquarium. Another thing to keep in mind is that Anubias Coffeefolia is usually one of the more expensive Anubias types in the hobby. Now the price increase really isn't that much, but it can be enough to put people off getting the plant, including myself, and this, as well as various supply issues, is one of the main reasons that it took me so long to try this plant. Just like a lot of other types of Anubias, Coffeefolia is a slow grower, but it does well in a wide range of pH levels, and it can also thrive in low light tanks. Moving on to Anubias Caladifolia, and I currently only keep this one one in my 29-gallon tank. In my opinion, this is a great all-round plant for most aquarium setups if you can find it available for sale. It has an average fully grown height of around 6 inches or 15 centimeters, letting you keep this in a wide range of tank sizes and using it in the mid and background of your tank. Now, I'm not sure if this is due to supply issues around the plant or it just being so popular that it sells out as soon as it gets in stock, but it's been an absolute pain for me to get this plant. I actually tried to order another one of these for my 40-gallon tank because I like it so much, but they ended up sending me an extra Anubias Nana plant as they didn't have any Caladifolia left. One of the main advantages of Anubias Caladifolia, in my opinion, is its large leaf size relative to the max height of the plant, helping you provide cover and hiding spots for your fish without having to have a huge plant in your tank. Now, this is my Anubias Caladifolia in my 29-gallon tank, and one thing that I disagree with most sales pages is that this is often described as having either heart-shaped, arrowhead or elongated leaves, but to me these look oval. This really isn't a major issue, but I just wanted to point it out in case people are specifically going for this plant because of its listed heart-shaped leaves, but this is from an Australian cultivar lab, so it's not a natural plant, so that might explain the inconsistent leaf shape. This is the only Anubias Caladifolia I currently have, so the sample size is absolutely tiny, but so far I haven't had any serious issues with melt or rhizome rot, so it's been a great little plant. Next up we have Anubias coinleaf, and I currently have a bunch of these in my 40-gallon tank, one of them in my 29-gallon tank and 2 of them in my 8-gallon tank. I have so many of these because until recently this was my favourite type of Anubias and I still love it, I'm still a huge fan of it, but after seeing the rib detail on the leaves of Anubias Coffeefolia, I do think that is now my current favourite Anubias plant. As I mentioned earlier, I do try to mix things up with the size, shape, colour and texture of the leaves of the plants in my tank, and the round leaf shape of Anubias coinleaf definitely helps it stand out. Anubias coinleaf does have a maximum listed height of around 8 inches or 20 centimeters, but again this is a very slow grower in my experience and it's easy to trim the plant down when kept in smaller tanks. Depending on the size of your aquarium, this can make a great mid to background plant for most tank setups. One point of note for this specific Anubias is that there is the regular Anubias coinleaf, a Nana coin and a mini coinleaf variant of this plant on the market. I have the regular and Nana variants and both look very similar and their maximum heights only change by a very small amount, and I do know places sell these two interchangeably because realistically there's only a very small difference between them. Currently I don't have the mini coinleaf variant of this plant as it is usually more expensive, but it does have a listed height of around 2 inches or 5 centimeters. The leaf size of the regular version of this plant are large enough to offer some cover and hiding spots for smaller fish, but the leaves of Anubias Caladifolia are definitely larger and better for this type of job in your tank. This is one of the types of Anubias that I have the most experience with, and in my experience this is a very hardy plant. Off the top of my head, I can't actually remember having any serious problems with melt or rhizome rot with this specific Anubias, so I am comfortable recommending this for beginners. Next up is Anubias Glabra, and I currently have a few of these in my 40-gallon tank and I have a few in my 8-gallon tank too, but I used to have an absolute ton of these in my old 29-gallon scape, so again I have a lot of experience with this plant. Similar to Anubias Barteri, this is another Anubias that confuses people due to its naming conventions, but this one is on a whole other level. Most plant companies do currently sell and label this plant as Anubias Glabra, but it did used to be sold en masse as Anubias angustifolia, and to this day Aquaflora still sell it under the angustifolia name. In addition to that, Tropicus say this plant used to be sold under the Anubias afzelii name, and Denale say it used to be sold under the Anubias lanceolata name. Technically all of these are different plants to each other, but in the hobby anything listed as Anubias Glabra or Anubias angustifolia is usually the same plant, so keep an eye out for both labels if you are looking for this. I know I've mentioned this a few times now, but I do like unique leaves in my tanks, and Anubias Glabra does have the longer, thinner leaves. This plant can get up to around 10 inches or 25 centimeters in height, so it can work well as a mid or background tank in a wide range of tank setups, but again, the slow growth rate lets you trim it down in smaller tanks. I honestly don't know how many different types of Anubias Glabra I've kept kept in my tanks, but in my experience this plant is relatively hardy and beginner friendly provided it's kept in low light conditions. I have tried this plant in moderate light tanks and it can be hit and miss, but you can use surface plants or hardscape to block light out to let this plant thrive in those environments. Next up we have Anubias Nana, and at the time of recording I currently only have this in my 40-gallon tank, but I did used to have a few of these in my old 29-gallon and 8-gallon scapes too. You'll have to forgive the algae on mine in these clips because this is a new setup and my shrimp and snails are still working on cleaning the algae off, so just pretend the leaves are spotless. To my knowledge, this is one of the most popular types of Anubias in the hobby due to its small size, making it work well in a wide range of aquarium sizes. For example, in a larger tank you can use this as a detailing plant on your hardscape, but it can also be used well in smaller tanks as an actual feature plant. This is due to the plant maxing out at around 4 inches or 10 centimeters in height, giving it a lot of different use cases in the hobby. Just like Anubias Caladifolia and Anubias coinleaf mentioned earlier, the leaves of these plants can provide hiding spots for smaller fish, but it does have the smallest leaves out of all 3 of those varieties. In my personal experience, the main downside of this plant is the hardiness of it, and for some reason I do have a pretty high melt rate with this particular version of Anubias, but I know other people who have no issues at all with it. In my experience, in most cases the plant will grow back without issue after the initial melt and adjustment to its new environment, but it can take a few months. This could be due to the plant being a cultivar specifically developed for its smaller size, but I really don't know. One point of note is that neither of the 2 Anubias Nana plants in my 40-gallon tank have melted, and this could be due to adding them after the initial cycle had completed, but more on this when I'm talking about the next plant. So next up we have Anubias Petite, and I currently have this in my 40-gallon and 8-gallon tanks, but I've kept this in a bunch of different old scapes. This is one of the smallest Anubias types in the hobby, and it usually maxes out at around 2 inches or 5 centimeters, but this is another cultivar, so it can get a little larger at times. Due to its small size and compact growth, Anubias Petite is usually only used for detailing on hardscape or as a foreground plant. Unlike Anubias Nana, Caladifolia or coinleaf, the compact growth of this plant does limit the amount of cover its leaves can provide for your fish, so I usually only use it as a decorative plant. From what I can tell, the popularity of Anubias Petite is rapidly starting to increase as more and more people start to keep nano tanks. In my experience, this is easily the most problematic type of Anubias I've ever kept, and a few of my friends also have consistent issues with this plant. Unlike Anubias Nana that I covered previously that will grow back after a melt, with Anubias Petite the regrowth rate is around 50-50, so around half of the plants that do melt in my experience never grow back. Now I've seen a bunch of people online report that their Anubias Petite melted, and then a couple of people offer various different potential causes of the melt, but recently I saw an Instagram reel where they said that Anubias Petite is prone to issues with even a small amount of ammonia in its tank. Until my recent 40-gallon tank build, I usually cycled my tanks with the plants in them due to the amount of nitrogen compounds that plants will use up for growth, but this time on the 40-gallon I did a fishless and plantless cycle. Now I was actually expecting at least one, potentially both of the Anubias Petites in this tank to melt, but so far both of them are thriving. So my previous issues with this particular plant and potentially Anubias Nana that I mentioned before could have been due to cycling the tank with the plants in it and the ammonia levels spiking up a little bit and the plant not liking it. Anyway, this is a cute tiny variant of Anubias that looks great in a wide range of different tank setups, and hopefully your plant won't melt if you get this. So this next one isn't actually a type of Anubias, but it's my favourite Anubias alternative, Bucephalandra, but due to its smaller size you can only really use it as an alternative to the smaller variants of Anubias. I currently have Bucephalandra in my 40-gallon tank, my 29-gallon tank and my 8-gallon tank, but I've had it in a bunch of old scapes as well. Personally, I actually prefer this over some of the smaller types of Anubias because just like Anubias, there's a wide range of types out there for Bucephalandra, but unlike Anubias, Bucephalandra can come in a wide range of different colours as well. Currently, I have Bucephalandra Red Scorpio, Bucephalandra Sintang, Bucephalandra Thea Green, and my personal favourite, Bucephalandra Kedagang. I actually like this plant so much that I'm toying with the idea of my next Better Fish tank just using a wide range of different types of Bucephalandra rather than different types of plants. In my personal experience, all the types of Bucephalandra that I've kept have been very hardy, and I've never had any issues with melt. That said, I have lost count of the number of people I've seen online who've had problems with this plant. Due to this, if you do want to try Bucephalandra in your aquarium, it might be worth getting a single plant just to see how it does in your tank water before you spend more money and get a wide range of them. Now, just for a bit of fun, I do want to quickly go over a little tier list that I've made for these plants. Personally, I would rate Caladifolia as an S tier Anubias because of its small size, making it a great plant for a wide range of tank sizes, and its large leaves offering practical purposes for hiding spots for your fish. Coinleaf would be another S tier plant for me personally due to its round leaves making it stand out against the other types of Anubias, but its small size also scores at points, and again its leaves are large enough to work as hiding spots for smaller fish. Anubias Glabra is another S tier for me due to its unique leaf shape and it being a pretty hardy variant of Anubias in my experience. Bucephalandra is the last S tier plant that I've featured in this video, and it's mainly because it's available in a wide range of colours and in my experience it's been very hardy. I'm going to put Anubias Coffeefolia as an A tier plant because this is a little bit more expensive than the other featured plants and it can have inconsistencies with its maximum height, but I absolutely love the leaf texture on this plant and does have nice big leaves that your fish can hide behind if they want. I also put Anubias Nana as an A tier plant because for me personally it has melted a lot, but it does usually grow back if it does melt, and its smaller size makes sure you can use this in a wide range of different tank setups. I put Anubias Barteri as a B tier plant simply due to its massive size, and a lot of people who use nano tanks or smaller tanks will be better off with a different type of Anubias, but if you do have a big tank I would probably put this as S tier because it's very hardy. I have put Anubias Petite as a B tier plant because, as I mentioned, historically it has melted a lot, but if it's melting because of the ammonia spike during cycling, this is an easy fix and then I would move it up to an A tier plant. In my opinion, the only reason I wouldn't put this as an S tier plant if that is the cause of melt is its smaller leaves making it difficult to offer any practical hiding spots or anything like that for your fish. Anyway guys, that tier list was just a little bit of fun on my thoughts and experiences, and that brings the video to an end, so hopefully you found this helpful and I hope you have a good day.